Hello my friends, my name is Rich and welcome to Greatest Rock and Metal. On Greatest Rock and Metal I talk about what are for me the greatest rock albums, bands, gigs of all times, based on listening to thousands of albums and going to hundreds of gigs over many years. If you enjoy what you see, please press the red button to subscribe to the channel. It's free, it's easy to do, and it won't take very long. Thank you very much. Okay, today we are celebrating the 30th anniversary, 30 years ago, of this brilliant album. Van Halen's For Unlawful, Carnal Knowledge, also known as Fuck. Spell it out. So, F-U-C-K, 30 years old today, so I thought it would be a great time to look back at this album. As I've said on a previous episode, my introduction to Van Halen came way back in 1980 with the album Over Here, Women and Children First, and you can look at a previous episode to find out my thoughts about that and a bit more about my history with Van Halen. So, on to this album. Now, we're dealing in a very different time period now because in 1985, Sammy Hagar, vocalist Sammy Hagar, this guy here, joined Van Halen after original vocalist Dave Lee Roth quit to go solo. And it was very much a change of image and a change of sound for the band. And their first album with Hagar, this one here, 5150. It was a great album. It surprised a lot of people at the beginning because it was so different, not so different, but quite different to what they've been used to hearing with David Lee Roth. But Sammy Hagar brought a very different feel to the band. He still had the party atmosphere, but in 1985 things had moved on in rock and metal, and they started to move away from their 70s kind of look into an 80s style, more glamish type of image, which Sammy Hagar embraced quite a lot, and the band moved on. This album was very much a transition album, and we can talk about that album another time. Sammy Hagar, for those of you who don't know about Sammy Hagar, he came to prominence with the band Montrose. He recorded their classic 1973 debut Montrose album, and well worth going back and looking at that album. Really, really good album. And then not long after that, he went solo himself and had very much a reasonably successful solo career, mainly in the USA, not so much worldwide. Moving on through their history with Hagar, 1986, they had the OU812 album, which had a bit of a darker feel to it, and they're now starting to find what many started to term the Van Hagar sound of the band. But it was this one, the real pinnacle, in 1991. The For Unlawful. Now I know what they just call it, Fuck, so I will continue to do so. The Fuck album, and we'll talk more about that in a few moments. Sadly, it wasn't to last much longer. The 1996, they had one more studio album together, Balance, and then it was kind of all over. They did have a reunion in 2003 for a couple of years, but it didn't last very long because by 2007 Van Halen were back with original vocalist David Lee Roth. And then of course, despite many rumours over the years, they never got back together with Sammy, and sadly it was all over last year with the death of Eddie Van Halen, and of course, quite rightly, the death of the Van Halen band. But the music will live on forever. So 30 years ago today, the F-U-C-K album, Fuck album, is released. And it really is an absolute stone cold classic. It is just great song after great song after great song. As always, when I look at these albums, I always pick my favourite 4. It's a tough ask to do with this album because I really love every song on this album. But as with anything, there are some true standouts, and for me, these are going to be the true standouts. The opening track, Pound Cake. Wow. This was our introduction single to this new album, and it starts off with Eddie playing the electric drill on the guitar, and it's got the brilliant, and then into this massive riff, and then a big Sammy oh yeah scream, and we're off and running into a stunningly heavy, brilliant song. Everything about this song is perfection. The musicianship, the vocals, the video. Certainly check out the video for this song, and some hot girls enjoying themselves, quite rightly so, because it's a great track to enjoy yourself too. So, great way to start the album, and then it's a 1-2 punch, because then we're into the song Judgment Day. Judgment Day, another brilliant intro to the song, a big heavy riff, and probably the most metal that Van Halen got in the Van Hagar era, without any shadow of a doubt. And just everything, again, stunning on this track throughout. The third track I will pick, and really this is the song that turned this album into a multi-platinum seller in the USA, and made them bigger outside of the USA than they'd ever been before. It's the song Right Now. And wow, once again Eddie Van Halen confounds us all. The greatest guitarist on the planet at that time comes back with yet another amazing keyboard riff. Remember, he shocked us all in 1984 with the keyboard riff to Jump. Do, 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 do. Why is he playing keyboards? He's an amazing guitar player. Doesn't matter, it's an amazing riff. Love it. Same here. This time it's on the piano. Brilliant piano riff starts this song and appears throughout the song. Great song. It's also fascinating to revisit the video for this song now. Look it up on YouTube. There'll be a link below. And within the song's video, there's lots of negative facts, mainly negative facts about the world at that particular time. And 30 years on, you look at those facts today, not a lot has changed, sadly. It's just a way of the world. But a fascinating song that will always seem to have its place in rock history. And then the last track I will pick is Top of the World. Again, yet another brilliant guitar intro, another brilliant Sammy scream, hey baby! And we're off and running with a superb chorus on this. Standing on top of the world. Great sing-along song, stunning vocals throughout from Sammy. And also, I mustn't forget to say, the rhythm work of Alex Van Halen and Michael Anthony on this album is superb. Helped a lot by the return of producer Ted Templeton, who had been involved in all the Dave Lee Roth Van Halen albums. And you really do notice Ted Templeton has a very distinctive sound that he creates with Van Halen, and it is especially helpful for the drums and the bass, which really sound amazing on this album. And of course, The album is full of brilliant Eddie Van Halen guitar solos on pretty much every track. Highly recommended album. Go out and buy it if you do not have it. If you're only a David Lee Roth fan, you're missing out, because Hagar stuff is great stuff too. So, next I'm going to talk about the time when I was able to see this band live. But before we do that, let's take a look at Rock T-shirts by the Sea. Okay, so luckily enough, I was able to see the Van Hagar band a couple of times live. The first time in April 1993. This is a very, very faded ticket from the NEC. I kind of wrote on there a little bit so I could still make out some of the words on there. And it was to promote the live album From the Fuck tour, which is live right here, right now. Great live album, and again another brilliantly sounding live double album. Wait, there goes one of the CDs. And they came over to Europe. Now, this did not happen a lot with Van Halen as a band. They've rarely been over with David Lee Roth, and it was the same with Sammy Hagar. So it was a real rare opportunity to see the band live, and they really delivered on this day. The support band on the day was a band called Little Angels from the UK, who were a great band. Sadly, they didn't last very long, but they got a real good catalogue. Check them out if you don't know about Little Angels. But of course, we were mainly here to see Van Halen, and what a gig, what an amazing gig. It was a 19-song set list, so they didn't skimp on it, and it did bring in a mixture of some of the David Lee Roth era songs. We got 5 songs from the David Lee Roth era: Jump, Unchained, Ain't Talking About Love, Panama, and You Really Got Me. And they were great. I mean, but some of the songs, I have to be honest, don't quite work with Sammy. I don't know what it is. Jump has never just sounded right with Sammy for me. Panama, he can pull off Panama. But there's just something about the attitude. It's not his vocal ability. Of course, Sammy Hagar has an amazing vocal ability, far greater than David Lee Roth ever had. However, Roth's vocals just kind of suited those songs. It's how they stick in your mind, yeah? Sometimes you just don't want to hear them change. But okay, it's great that they included some of those in the set, because when Sammy first joined the band, we didn't get many of the David Lee Roth era songs. Sammy played a couple of his own solo songs as well. There's Only One Way to Rock, which sounds brilliant, played by Eddie Van Halen, I have to say. It's a real notch up on the original. And a song called Amnesty Is Granted. They also played a cover version right at the end of Freeze All Right Now. I don't know why. When you've got such a great catalogue as Van Halen have, and they didn't need to add in a cover version that they didn't play on any of their previous albums, and it kind of was to a certain extent almost anticlimactic end to the gig, because that was the last song they played. And although it's a great song and they did it well, it's just like, I want to leave with Van Halen in my ears, not with the Free song in my ears. But that's okay. They only played 3 songs from 5150, and that's a really strong album, and it would have been nice if they'd have played more of those, because as I said, they'd not been over to Europe with Sammy Hagar before. So to have heard a few more tracks from 5150, and OU812 would have been great. But hey, not to criticize, it was still brilliant to be there and to hear the songs that they did play, because they did a brilliant job in delivering those musically and performance-wise, because Sammy is also a great performer, as David Lee Roth used to be. Different style, but great performer nonetheless. The only criticism that I have with Van Halen live, and it doesn't matter what era it was, it's the solos. Once again, we got very long drum solos, bass solos, and guitar solos. Now, I know there's brilliant musicians and very, very good at what they do, but the length of the solos that Van Halen used to do was a bit of a killer in terms of the momentum of the gig. Doesn't matter however great musicians they may be, solos can get a little bit boring, unless you do what Tommy Lee of Motley Crue does, where he builds a giant roller coaster and then solos around the roller coaster, playing to lots of famous riffs as well. So that kind of works. But nevertheless, it was still a brilliant concert, and so lucky to have been there. The other time I saw them live with Sammy was on the Balance tour, when they came back to Europe again, although this time they were playing as special guests to Bon Jovi. Okay, so there you have it. That's my mini celebration of the Fuck album 30 years ago today. If you haven't already done so, get it out, play it again. If you don't possess it, get out and buy it or download it or stream it, or however you get your music. No album recommendations from the Sammy Hagar era, because there's only 4 of them. So I normally do my favourite 4 albums. It's not worth it, because there's only 4 studio albums from them anyway. But certainly top of the pile with Sammy is Fuck. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed that. Please press the red button to subscribe to the channel, so that you can see future episodes about Van Halen, and also future greatest rock and metal episodes. Thank you very much for watching, and remember, as always, we rock!